the heart of the Mediterranean, there exists a special world where bears and eagles live free among the vestiges of a distant past. It is a veritable treasure trove of biodiversity that, from the Alps to the islands facing Africa, is home to riches of inestimable value. Thousands of species of plants and animals, including the continent's fiercest predators. This is Italy. Here, among the art and the history, a wild heart beats. Like a bridge between Europe and Africa, the Italian peninsula is one of the most important bird migration routes across the Mediterranean. A path that millions of migratory birds follow, so that the population in Rome doubles in a few days. Every autumn, the sky is obscured by clouds of starlings arriving from northern Europe to sleep in the city's tree-lined avenues and parks. For a few months, they create havoc in the city's already chaotic routine. Someone tries to take them on using all of his extraordinary aerial skills. A patrol of winged predators turn the skies of the city into a theatre in which to demonstrate their acrobatic hunting skills. The starlings are small migratory birds that come from Central Europe. They are driven here by the cold that has gripped the countryside to the north of the Alps and are attracted to Rome by the prospect of spending a few weeks in a warm, friendly city. After spending the day in the countryside around the metropolis, looking for food among the olive trees and crops, they begin to fly over the buildings and streets, ever lower. Each group can be made up of as many as 100,000 individuals, which cross each other's paths without incident, each following their own course and flight plan to the millimetre in a way that seems almost miraculous. Starlings are gregarious birds. They like to travel together and stay close to each other to keep warm and feel safe, and above all, to exchange information about the best places to find food. This is why the flocks fly for long periods before settling on their perches, in order to signal to isolated patrols and to individuals that have lost contact with the group where to go to find company and enjoy the advantages of the gregarious life. The arrival of the starlings represents a distinctly unpleasant occurrence that needs to be faced with an umbrella, even when it is not raining. Starlings represent tons of food, literally manna from heaven, for winged predators such as falcons and gulls, which use a variety of hunting techniques to take advantage of the noisy mass of bodies that clogs the skies of the city every evening. The peregrine falcon operates in a surgical manner, a style of aerial hunting that has made it the falconer's favourite hawk for millennia. The male weighs a third of the female, just 400 grams. But for both sexes, a starling is worth an evening's hunting, conducted mainly over the impressive dormitory that has established itself in the cypress trees and pines of the cemetery of Rome. The starlings seek refuge in the evergreen trees, but before they reach the protection of the foliage, they must fly for quite a while, and the peregrines take full advantage of the opportunity to catch them. Like shepherds driving their flocks, the falcons follow them and choose the opportune moment to attack any individual that appears slower and less lively than the others. To defend themselves, the starlings gather together, forming a wall of feathers and bodies that the falcon dares not attack. With sudden aerial maneuvers, always maintaining the group's unity with perfectly synchronized movements, they confront the hunter with an indistinct mass that is difficult to attack, above all because it is very hard to identify the weakest specimen among the 10,000 bodies and 20,000 wings. In order to move with such perfect synchronization, every starling must imitate perfectly the maneuvers performed by the 7 individuals closest to it. The result is a wave of bodies. But before it gets dark, the hawk will have isolated a specimen, one that is slower and less agile than the others, and its fate will be sealed. Starlings arouse the predatory instincts of another sky striker, the herring gull, which for some years now have decided to hunt them down. They are not skilled predators like peregrines. They do not have claws to grab the flying starlings, but they can rush headlong into the group and strike out blindly with their sharp beaks and wings, trying to bring down the smaller birds. It is a game of skill. The starlings are more skillful, but slower. They can only save themselves by swooping down into the trees and sheltering in the branches. But if they perch too high and in view, the gulls may sweep down and try to hit them. The crows look on without intervening. They do not have the speed, strength, or long, wide wings necessary to hunt birds in flight. Every night, there are some victims. But there are always lots left, and finally, they can settle down to sleep. The exhaust from cars and heat from the buildings helps them fight the cold. The lights keep away the owls, and the noise of the cars is a pleasant lullaby. When the starlings sleep, peace returns to the banks of the Tiber, with St. Peter's reflected in its waters. Birds have always held a special place in the history of Rome, ever since they indicated the place where Romulus should found the city. It was by observing the flight of birds that the first king of Rome knew that it was on the Palatine Hill on the banks of the Tiber that the gods wanted to site the city that was to dominate the ancient world. Here, every stone is witness to centuries of history, at least 28 if we respect the tradition that Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus and Remus. A lot of water has passed under the bridges of the River Tiber since then, but the birds continue to be a living, even intrusive presence. It could be said that Rome is in the hands, or rather in the claws, of the birds. Among the hundreds of different species that live more or less regularly in Rome, these three birds compete for the title of rulers of the city. The most annoying and spectacular is definitely the herring gull. Its scientific name is Larus cacinens, which means laughing gull. Weight 1,200 grams, wingspan 1.5 meters. Special weapons, sharp beak, great wingspan, webbed feet. And here is the challenger, the peregrine falcon. Special weapons, it is the fastest bird in the world, has strong talons and amazing eyesight. Now we come to the third city striker, the hooded crow, Corvus cornix, a lightweight when compared to the gull, barely 500 grams, wingspan 90 centimeters, special weapons. Intelligence. The intelligence of crows is comparable to that of monkeys. If it fancies a drop of wine left in the bottom of a glass, a crow understands that it must turn it over. A dog, without an appropriate training, would never get it. However, the crow does not want to have its picture taken. Three birds in black and white, absolutely colourless. But no, look closer. The herring gull sports a beautiful yellow bill with a red tip. The peregrine falcon has yellow legs and a beautiful blue ash-grey mantle. And the crow? There is nothing to be done. It is irredeemably grey and black. They are very different, but they also have much in common. The reason why in recent decades these three species have invaded Rome are the same. They have chosen to live in the city because food is abundant. Indeed, we will witness a fight to the last feather that will in the end decide which of them will eventually take over the city. At the end of winter, the starlings take the route north along with the flocks of black-headed gulls that fly over the city, following the current of the river as if it were a highway. But the sky strikers remain in town and begin their nesting activities. Although they live among the buildings and cars, city gulls continue to follow the rhythms of nature and prepare for nesting. But sometimes the weather plays dirty tricks on them, and sometimes, although rarely, it even snows in Rome. It has been snowing all night, and in the morning, it is as if the city has gone into hibernation. Poorly equipped to face the snow with vehicles without snow chains and tyres, most Romans have stayed at home. Schools, shops and offices are closed. The city is like a ghost town, completely in a daze and unable to react. Unable to find food, the gulls have left. They have moved to the coast, and only a few black-headed gulls have remained, freezing their claws on the roofs of the boats moored along the river. But the food is gone. There are 20, even 30 centimetres of white crystals. Only a sharp eye and an innate ability to poke around in the soil allows the crows to unearth some food. In the snow, you can find the rarest and most endangered bird in the city. Here it is, the house sparrow. Once extremely common, today so rare that it is in danger of extinction. No one can explain the reason for this demographic collapse. The fact is that sparrows have become ghosts. For the gulls, the crows and the peregrine falcons, as well as the many other species of birds that live in the city's park, the nesting season begins. Spring is felt even through walls, tarmac and metal sheets. It creeps up on the parks and avenues, in the flowering of plants exotic and familiar, in the many small daily events that are common in the countryside, but here always leave one pleasantly surprised. Villa Borghese overlooks the city from the heights of the Pincio Hill, which offers fabulous views of the Church of St. Peter's emerging from among the rooftops like a giant marble cliff. In spring, bushes and trees display nature's very finest colours for a few days. Almost all the starlings have left, and there are only a few nesting in the city and performing their multilingual trills. The pupa of butterflies start to hatch. The showy swallowtail appears, gradually spreading its wings in tepid spring sunshine. The many species of insects that thrive in the summer in the park include not only big fat rhinoceros beetles, but also the attractive but terrible palm weevils. These beetles, an alien species accidentally introduced from Far East Asia, have affected the various species of palms in the city's parks, killing hundreds of the specimens that for decades have softened the appearance of the city. When the leaves of the trees begin to bend, it is too late to save the plant. It means that hundreds of larvae have infested its trunk, digging tunnels and destroying the tissues and vessels. There is nothing to do but chop them down and remove them. The city is full of exotic plants from the furthest corners of the globe. pomegranates from Asia, palms from Africa. Exotic trees attract exotic birds. These parrots are free. Rome has been invaded by parrots, in fact by 2 different species. Ring-necked parakeets are of Asian origin, and although they too probably escaped from some aviary, there is the remote possibility that they just flew in from the Middle East. They nest in the hollows of tree trunks individually, but come together to feed from trees bearing their favourite fruits. They look exotic and amaze and surprise Roman citizens, but little by little they are becoming perfectly integrated with the other inhabitants of the city. However, that is nothing compared to the shock of seeing enormous nests growing in the trees in the courtyards and waking up to what sound like jungle noises. Monk parakeets nest in cedars and other large trees. They build colonial nests of twigs and pine needles constructed rapidly by chattering green and grey birds that swoop down to the ground to eat seeds and, if they get the chance, to pinch the food of the animals in the nearby zoo. This species is native to South America and undoubtedly came to Rome in the aviaries and cages of dealers and animal collectors. Sometimes ring-necked parakeets fly down to eat on the ground and, moving with a waddling gait on their short legs, go in search of seeds that have fallen among the gravel of the park. Other animals are also in search of seeds, squirrels and black rats. The squirrels are not reddish like their alpine and European cousins. Mediterranean squirrels are darker in colour. They are considered cute, whereas rats are at best ignored, but more often hated and persecuted. Yet they are both rodents and they have similar habits. True, black rats have hairless tails, but seen up close, they're not so bad. Birds are busy looking after their young. It is the trickiest period of their existence, and each pair is trying to build a nest in a safe place. Sometimes, the best thing to do is to get as close as possible to the most ruthless predator of all, because his presence will keep the others at bay. Many birds have chosen to nest on balconies, almost inside houses. This hoopoe has made its nest in a wall of tufa, a light, porous stone also used by the ancient Romans. These birds love to look for food on the lawns, freshly mown by the city council's gardeners. Their long beaks can find larvae, spiders, and all sorts of little creatures. The great spotted woodpecker has grown accustomed to nesting close to people and is not greatly bothered by their presence. This trunk of a tree has been excavated with extraordinary precision. The hole measures exactly 6 centimetres in diameter. The ducks that nest in the park's lakes need 100 eyes, because these marauders keep them under strict surveillance, encircling, trying to bother them and steal their eggs. But where do they, The seagulls and the crows make their nests. Crows nest in the tallest trees. The branches are so thin that no animal predator could climb up. Gulls nest between the tiles and the capitals of the old city, where there are plants that provide suitable material for building nests, which are not always placed away from prying eyes and the interference of human beings. The seagull fiercely protects its brood, and it needs to, because its eggs are coveted above all by other gulls. Cannibals who do not distinguish between the eggs and chicks of their own species and those of other birds. Crows do not have these problems. Their eggs and their chicks can grow without fear of enemies. A pair of gulls has no fear of people and decided to settle on the terrace of a building near Piazza Navona, a stone's throw from the Tiber, right in the ancient centre of the city. They take advantage of the food that people leave for them, often without being aware of it. The peregrine falcons occupy various high structures among the city's ruins, which remind them of the rocky walls usually inhabited by pairs who live in natural environments on sea cliffs or in the mountains. There are the pairs in the centre and those in the suburbs. The former have prestigious homes. The latter are content with more modern and modest facilities, but also feel safe. The falcon does not fear many enemies and has chosen a dominant place, a water tower where it can nest 40 feet up, as if on top of a seaside cliff. Its smaller cousin, the kestrel, has opted for an artificial nest. But a webcam is able to discreetly record the intimacy of family life 24 hours a day, every moment in the life of the adults and later, the young. In recent years, the peregrine falcons have increased, while the population of the small kestrel decreased. They are weaker. They could even be the victim of the bigger and stronger raptors. Although some starlings have remained to nest in the trees of the parks, the vast majority have left only memories and returned to Central and Northern Europe. The disappearance of the starlings is not a problem for the seagulls. There is always some other winged creature to chase. This time, their prey are bats. The gulls are able to bring down the bats that usually live under the arches of the bridge. Just 20 grams of food, a bit difficult to get down, but lots of bats make a complete meal. Seagulls may also be skilled hunters, but if they can eat without too much effort, they don't have to be asked twice. In the city, they can take advantage of the waste produced every day by 4 million humans, and which is not always collected quickly or efficiently. As much as we try to collect the rubbish from the bins and recycle it, in a big city, a few sacks will always be missed by humans, but not by animals. A band has learned to open the bags of garbage deposited on the street, waiting for the refuse collection service to pick them up. Brown rats join the banquet in full daylight. All species seem to exploit peacefully the same food resource, but brown rats are on the menu of the gulls, which are the most efficient predators of these mammals in the streets and in the garbage dumps. For the peregrine falcons, the disappearance of the starlings is a problem, but they deal with it by concentrating on hunting the other prey that is abundant in the city: pigeons. Pigeons provide a lot of food, but they're not easy to catch because they have a darting flight pattern and keep low between the buildings specifically to escape the hawks. It rains, sometimes too much. The nest of the human-friendly pair has been washed away by water. Dismayed, the two search in vain for their eggs, which have fallen on the road, 4 floors down. And the Tiber swells, its waters overflowing the riverside path and lapping menacingly at bridges and embankments. The fire brigade are on the alert. The height of the river is impressive, 7 meters higher than usual. Another 2 meters, and it will flow over the high walls erected to prevent the flooding that for millennia has been the Romans' nightmare. In the morning, the city seems to be waking up from a nightmare. The Tiber is still very high, and the trees emerge from it as if washed there by the current. The muddy water rushes headlong towards the sea, dragging with it rubbish of all kinds. Fortunately, the river level is falling inch by inch. The danger is averted. Today, the river is imprisoned between walls for most of its urban course, but, like all forces of nature, it retains an incredible vitality. The fish life in the river is very rich and is now largely made up of exotic and invasive species such as carp and catfish. They cannot fail to attract not only cormorants, but also other anglers such as little egrets. The storm has damaged some nests, but for most gulls, the great day has arrived. One fine day, we realise that the gull chicks have hatched. They peep out from beneath the soft feathers of their mother, small, but ready to make their way in life. But they have to be fed by their parents, who regurgitate partially digested food. Scientist Nico Tinbergen, one of the fathers of ethology, spent many years observing the lives of gulls, particularly their mating and territorial behaviour, the relationship between adults and chicks, and the innate and learned mechanisms that inhibit the aggression of a creature that is capable of being both a formidable predator and a gentle and affectionate parent. When the adult returns to the nest, the chick reacts instinctively at the sight of the parent's head, pecking at the tip of the beak and stimulating the regurgitation of food. The red mark on the tip of the adult's beak acts like a button on a snack machine. Just push it to get the food. The gulls that have lost their nest seem to watch the couples lovingly defending and caring for their chicks with a certain envy. The last of the migrants has now reached Rome. Swifts come directly from Africa and occupy their nests under the roofs and in the cracks of the walls. Swifts live in the air, looking for dipterans and flying ants that make up a large part of their diet. They land in the nest daily, only to feed the chicks. They are superb flyers. Only a skilled peregrine can try to catch them in the air. But the gulls have found the way to exploit the food resource provided by these masters of flight. They observe the movements of the swifts and wait for them at the entrance holes of the nests to capture them when they come out. The gull's digestive capacity has no limits. Feathers, bones, legs, beak are dissolved by the powerful gastric juices to extract every calorie and nutritive particle. Summer advances, and the heat is infernal on the rooftops where there is not a trace of shadow. But luckily, among the ancient walls of Rome, there is always a gentle breeze from the west, the Ponentino. Young falcons stretch their long wings and practice flying before moving to the countryside in search of cooler air, birds, and silence. The young gulls, now grown, are panting to disperse the heat. In a few days, they will head for the river. The pair that lost their nest during the storm has laid only one egg, but now they have been sitting on it for too many weeks. It won't hatch now. But one day, a miracle happens. A little ball of feathers appears between its parents' claws. The egg has finally hatched at night when it is cooler. people are overjoyed. They guard it, watch it, and scream in alarm at everything and everyone. Just like an elderly couple who had lost hope of ever having children, they cannot do enough for their baby. Maybe it will grow up to be rather spoiled, but certainly it will be strong and robust. Italians love to feed animals. They're always convinced that they would starve to death if they did not bring them all kinds of food. Not just leftovers, but also fresh products generously taken from their own tables. Naturally, the first recipients are always the cats, traditionally fed by gattare, cat ladies, usually women of a certain age who take care of the herds of cats roaming the streets. The cats of Rome are so well fed by the gattare, who give them dry food and treats, that they have no desire to devote themselves to hunting birds and rats. But other animals are now in the habit of taking the food dispensed by the gattare. Cat ladies have become fox ladies in some streets on the outskirts of the city, where foxes, having avoided persecution by hunters and farmers, have completely put aside their natural mistrust and nocturnal habits to become as affectionate as dogs. And birds cannot be left out. Every species is fed, from tits feasting on sunflower seeds at the garden bird feeder, to ducks and pigeons, and naturally to our friends, the contestants in the challenge in black and white. The herring gull has learned that people may be annoying and chaotic, but they also hand out food, so it has decided to trust them and accept their offerings. Even crows have put aside their instinctive diffidence and learned to approach people in search of food. This is how evolution works. The most intelligent and adaptable creatures take advantage of new circumstances. For them, the city is a laboratory of accelerated evolution, where the ability to change habits rapidly is absolutely essential for winning the challenge to survive. The crows play their trump card. They are becoming another species. Their transformation has been radical. Not only have they changed their habits, they have also changed their appearance. Gradually, the normal grey crows are being replaced by black ones with white markings on their wings, which are invading the city, beginning with Villa Borghese. The new look is the result of a genetic mutation that natural selection considers advantageous. It seems that the mutant males are more attractive to females and therefore reproduce more. So before our very eyes, in the short span of a few generations, a new model is rapidly emerging, replacing the original and developing into a new species, the Roman crow. They will dominate Rome and its inhabitants, at least until a new bird drives them from the throne. At dawn, the avenue along the river sounds like a jungle. The parrots wake up in their own time and start eating the seeds of the trees. They are acrobatic like monkeys. They move along the branches to reach the leathery but nutritious seeds. They bill and coo and kiss gently. Then they move, looking for something more appetizing. Above them, the peregrine falcon of the Palace of Justice looks into the distance. parrots are of no interest to him. He doesn't think there will be anything edible and appetizing under that green plumage. It will take time for him to understand it. His partner has just gone to have a look at the marble sill where she will probably lay her eggs next spring, but now the hunter has more important things to do. He is waiting for the starlings. Now, it's just a matter of days. They will return to crowd the skies of Rome, chased by winged strikers and citizens, but they will not renounce their claim to this historic city.